There's a moment in everyone's life when they feel like the odd one out, when all eyes are on them, not in admiration, but in silent judgment. Maybe you've felt it too. The sideways glances, the quiet giggles, the whispers that aren't really whispers at all. It's that unsettling feeling that you don't quite belong, that something about you doesn't fit in. Now imagine being just a kid, walking into school, and having that moment happen every single day, all because of something as simple as a backpack. You heard that right. One girl, one tattered hand-me-down backpack, and a classroom full of teenagers who didn't know her story, but laughed anyway. But what if I told you that the thing they laughed at was hiding something? Something none of them saw coming. Something that changed everything. Hey, before we dive deeper, let me ask you this. Have you ever judged someone without knowing the full story? Or maybe you've been judged for what you wear, what you carry, or just who you are. If so, then stick with me because this story is going to hit home. You're here for a reason. Something in the title pulled you in. Maybe curiosity, maybe something more. But I promise you this. By the time we get to the end, you'll know exactly why that old backpack became the most unforgettable thing in the entire school. And it's not what you're thinking. Now listen carefully. This isn't just about a backpack. It's about how we treat people. It's about looking past what we see on the outside and realizing that sometimes the ones who seem invisible are carrying the most powerful stories. And right now, you're about to hear one of them. A story that's raw, real, and completely unexpected. So don't go anywhere. Because what's inside that backpack? It's not just an object. It's a moment that'll leave you stunned. Let me take you to Lincoln Middle School, a place like many others across America. A place where cliques form fast, reputations are made in seconds, and rumors spread faster than wildfire. It was the first week back after summer, and everyone was showing off the usual. New clothes, fresh sneakers, expensive phones. The hallways buzzed with teenage chatter about trips to Disney, iPhone upgrades, and TikTok trends. You could tell just by looking who was in and who wasn't. And then came her. Her name was Emily. Quiet, soft-spoken, and never the first to raise her hand in class. She wore jeans that didn't follow any trend and shoes that looked like they'd been through more than one owner. But the thing that stood out the most was her backpack. Faded pink, scuffed at the edges, with a zipper that barely hung on. Some of the kids said it looked like it belonged in a thrift store from the 90s. Others just stared and snickered. But none of them asked why she carried it. None of them asked what was inside. They just laughed. You see, kids can be cruel, not always out of malice, but out of ignorance. And when you're 13, fitting in feels like a survival skill. Emily didn't fit the mold. She didn't have the latest AirPods or a name-brand hoodie. Instead, she had this old backpack, one that seemed to carry more than just books. Every time she walked into homeroom, the teasing started. Hey Emily, the 80s called. They want their backpack back. Did your grandma give you that thing? Laughter echoed around the room, and each day, it chipped away at her little by little. But Emily never responded, never cried, never told on anyone. She just tightened her grip on those worn straps and kept walking. And here's where things get interesting. You'd think someone like her would just try to disappear, to fade into the background. But not Emily. One day, when the jokes were louder than usual, and a boy in the back even tried to unzip her bag while she wasn't looking, she stood up. Calmly. Without saying a word. And she opened the backpack herself. Now pause right there, because I know exactly what you're wondering. What was inside? Why would something as simple as opening a backpack bring a classroom to complete silence? Why would it make a teacher stop mid-sentence? Why would kids who had laughed at her for weeks suddenly stare in stunned silence? That's what we're about to uncover. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. But before we get there, I want to say something directly to you, the one watching right now. I know videos like this pop up all the time, and maybe you weren't planning to watch the whole thing. But this story? It's different. Because it doesn't just unfold like some made-up tale. It mirrors real life in ways that hit too close to home. If you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or felt like you had to keep part of yourself hidden just to survive a room, you're going to see a piece of yourself in Emily. And more importantly, you're going to see what happens when someone finally decides to stop hiding. So don't click away. Because in just a moment, we're going to go back to that classroom, to the exact second Emily opened that bag. And when you see what she pulls out, your jaw's going to drop. I'm telling you this right now. Nothing about her was what it seemed. And the truth inside that backpack? It will silence even the loudest laugh. You still with me?
Good.
Because everything's about to change. As Emily stood there, her fingers lightly brushing the frayed zipper of her old backpack, you could feel the entire energy in the room shift. For weeks, she'd been the quiet background character in a story written by everyone else. A name barely remembered, a girl most ignored, except when she became the punchline. But now, with just a single motion, she had all eyes locked on her, and this time, it wasn't for laughter. It was curiosity. Unease. Something about the way she moved was deliberate, like she had been waiting for this moment. But before we get to what she revealed, you need to understand the world behind that faded pink canvas bag. Because nothing in this story is as simple as it seems. Emily hadn't always been the quiet girl with the mystery backpack. Not long ago, she lived in a different part of town, a different school, a different life. Her father, a former military medic, had taken on multiple jobs after a workplace injury forced her mother out of work. Things were tight, but they had each other, and for a while that was enough. But then came the eviction. One missed paycheck became two. The family car broke down and never recovered. Emily, her younger brother Caleb, and their parents had to move in with her aging grandfather, who lived across the city. A new school meant new kids, new routines, and unfortunately new judgments. Emily didn't have the money for new clothes, didn't have a phone plan, and didn't have the confidence to walk into a classroom full of strangers and pretend like she belonged. She carried her world, her secrets, her past, her pain, in that old backpack. It wasn't just a bag. It was the last gift her mom had given her before things fell apart. It was the only thing that had stayed with her through every move, every storm. What most people didn't know was that Emily was smarter than they realized, sharper, more observant. She noticed the dynamics in the room. She watched who laughed the loudest, who watched quietly, and who looked away. She knew that not all cruelty came from the obvious places. There was Madison, the popular girl who always wore designer brands and took TikToks during lunch with her perfectly filtered friend group. She laughed the hardest whenever Emily walked past. Then there was Jordan, the class clown, who was loud and reckless but didn't seem to know why he made fun of people. He just did what got him attention. And then there was Tyler. Tyler didn't say much, but he watched Emily with an odd mix of interest and suspicion. He once asked her in passing what she carried in that old rag, but the question felt forced, like he already had his own ideas. What made things more complicated was the recent string of thefts happening around the school, small, almost petty things, but enough to cause a stir. Headphones from a gym locker, a teacher's keys from the lounge, even a Chromebook that mysteriously vanished from the media room. The administration hadn't figured out who was behind it, but rumors swirled fast, and in places like this, rumors don't need evidence. And lately, some students had started whispering that it might be the new girl with the creepy backpack. They said it half-jokingly, but there was a real edge beneath the humor. Emily had started to notice the whispers growing louder, the stares lingering longer. And when the vice principal randomly called her to the office last Tuesday, asking vague questions about where she was during lunch the day before, she knew that someone had put her name in the conversation. Someone wanted people to look at her. But Emily hadn't stolen anything. In fact, the idea of it was insulting. She had been spending her free time not at parties or sleepovers like the others, but helping her grandfather, who had trouble walking, managing her brother's homework while their parents worked late, and, more importantly, working on something else. Something that required time, secrecy, and a backpack no one thought twice about. That was the twist none of them saw coming. Still, the tension kept rising. Even the teachers had begun acting strangely around her. Ms. Carter, the kind-hearted English teacher who had offered to help her catch up in the beginning, now avoided eye contact and never called on her in class. Coach Daniels, the PE teacher who never smiled, had been seen talking to the school security officer outside her classroom. It felt like something was brewing behind the scenes, and somehow, it all pointed to Emily. At the same time, strange things kept happening. One morning, Emily found her locker wide open with her books scattered across the floor, but nothing missing. Another day, a folded note had been slipped inside her math textbook with only 2 words scribbled in capital letters: "Stop digging." She didn't tell anyone, not even her parents. And it wasn't just because she didn't want to worry them. It was because, deep down, she was starting to suspect someone didn't want the truth getting out. The truth about what, though? That's the question. And here's where it gets even more twisted. Earlier that week, during lunch, Emily had been seen talking quietly to one of the school's janitors, Mr. Blake, a reserved older man who rarely spoke to students. They stood near the service entrance, away from the crowd, and when Emily handed him a small, sealed envelope, some students watched from a distance. Madison was one of them. Later, she told her friends that the weirdo backpack girl was probably involved in something illegal. The next day, Mr. Blake didn't show up for work. He just disappeared. The school said he had taken leave for personal reasons, but no one believed it. Rumors exploded online. #BackpackGirl started trending on TikTok in the local area, and some students even started filming Emily at school without her knowing, trying to catch her doing something weird for likes and clout. And through it all, Emily stayed silent. Until now. Now, she stood in front of the class, holding that backpack like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She hadn't planned on doing this, not like this, but something had changed. Maybe it was the way Madison laughed just a little too loudly today. Maybe it was the cruel drawing someone taped to her locker this morning. Or maybe she had simply had enough. Because right now, as she slowly pulled the zipper open and reached inside, you could feel something more than just curiosity in the air. It was fear. Tension. The kind of silence that means something big is about to happen. But before you see what she reveals, you need to remember this. Sometimes the truth hides in plain sight. And sometimes the ones we overlook the most are the ones who see everything. Don't look away now. The next moment will make you question everything you thought you knew. Just as Emily's fingers brushed the object at the bottom of her backpack, a sharp knock rattled the classroom door. Everyone jumped. Even Mr. Caldwell, the normally unfazed history teacher, looked startled. The door creaked open and in stepped Ms. Ramirez, the assistant principal. Her eyes scanned the room, lingering just a little too long on Emily before settling on Mr. Caldwell. "Sorry to interrupt," she said calmly, but her tone had that forced politeness adults use when they're hiding something serious. "Emily Reynolds? You need to come with me, please." The classroom froze. The tension snapped tight, like an invisible cord threatening to break. Emily stood there, half-zippered backpack in her hands, and for a moment, it looked like she might ignore the call. But then she looked at Mr. Caldwell, who gave her a subtle nod, and without saying a word, she slung the backpack over her shoulder and walked out the door. The silence left behind was deafening. In the hallway, Ms. Ramirez didn't say much, just walked briskly with Emily trailing behind, her sneakers squeaking against the polished tile. They turned a corner and descended into the lower level of the building, the floor where the administrative offices were, along with the server room, the staff lounge, and an old archive room nobody ever talked about. Instead of leading Emily to the front office, Ms. Ramirez stopped outside that very archive room. She glanced over her shoulder before unlocking the door. "Go inside," she said quietly. Emily hesitated. "Why?" But Ms. Ramirez didn't answer. She just turned the handle, opened the door, and nodded again. Emily stepped in cautiously. The room was cold and dimly lit, filled with metal cabinets, dusty file boxes, and an old computer that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. Ms. Ramirez followed her in and shut the door behind them. "You've been asking questions," she said. Her voice wasn't angry, but it carried weight, like someone who knew too much and didn't want to say it. "About Mr. Blake. About what happened to those items that went missing. I know what you're doing." Emily didn't respond. She just tightened her grip on her backpack and waited. Ms. Ramirez took a step closer. "I'm going to give you one chance to stop. Whatever you think you're about to uncover, it's bigger than you realize. And if you keep digging, it won't end well. Not for you. Not for your family. It felt like a threat, but also like a warning. The kind someone gives when they still care. Emily didn't know what to make of it. Before she could speak, Ms. Ramirez handed her a manila folder. "This never happened," she said. "You were called down for a schedule change. That's what you'll tell anyone who asks." Then she opened the door and gestured for Emily to leave. Confused, Emily walked out with the folder pressed tightly to her chest. The hallway felt different now, darker, quieter. Like something had shifted behind the walls and was just waiting for the right moment to show itself. Back in her room that night, Emily sat cross-legged on her bed and opened the folder. Inside were 3 documents. The first was a staff report from 6 months ago, dated just before Emily had transferred. It mentioned a complaint filed by Mr. Blake about unauthorized access to the school's digital inventory system. The second was an internal memo flagging a missing shipment of school-issued tablets, devices that were supposed to arrive but never logged in. The third was a scanned photo of the school security room. On the screen, caught mid-frame, was a student standing near the back office, and it wasn't Emily. It was Jordan. Emily's breath caught. Jordan, the class clown, the loudmouth always joking about her backpack, had never once seemed suspicious. He was just annoying, not dangerous. But there he was, plain as day, in the security photo. The timestamp was from the same week the thefts began. She grabbed her phone and started searching. School news, social media, old group posts. The deeper she looked, the more her gut churned. There were subtle clues. A TikTok Jordan posted bragging about scoring free tech at school. A group chat screenshot someone had leaked last semester where he joked about covering his tracks. It all started to make sense. But just as she started to piece things together, she heard a knock on her bedroom door. Her mom peeked in. "Hey, hon, someone left this for you outside." She held up a small envelope, no stamp, no address. Emily took it, heart pounding. Inside was a single sheet of paper with one sentence typed in block letters. "I warned you." No signature. No return name. The next morning at school, Emily found her locker wide open again. But this time, something was missing. The flash drive she had hidden, containing copies of the photo, the documents, everything she had started saving was gone. Her stomach dropped. She looked around, but no one was watching. Or maybe someone was. Later that day, as she sat in the library trying to retrace her digital steps, she noticed Tyler, the quiet boy who never laughed with the others, sitting a few tables over. He was staring at her screen. When their eyes met, he looked away too quickly. Something about it felt wrong. And when he left the library, she noticed something poking out of his backpack, a flash drive. The same model she had. Was Tyler helping her? Or was he the one watching her all along? She stood up to follow him. But before she could leave, her email inbox pinged with a new message. No sender. Just a subject line. "Check what's hidden under locker 107. That wasn't her locker. It was Madison's. And just like that, the story twisted again. What was hidden under Madison's locker? Why was Tyler acting suspicious now? And who was behind the warning note? You're not going to want to miss what happens next. The truth is spiraling, and someone is going to great lengths to keep it buried. But Emily? She's not done yet. Not by a long shot. Emily stared at her inbox, heart pounding like it was trying to crawl up her throat. Check what's hidden under locker 107. It played over in her head like a broken record. Locker 107 belonged to Madison, one of the most popular girls in school, the one who had led the laughter that first day when Emily walked in with her frayed backpack and mismatched hoodie. Madison had never spoken directly to her since then, but her whispers and eye rolls traveled faster than wildfire. Emily had no idea what could possibly be under Madison's locker, or why anyone would tell her to look there, but everything in her gut screamed that this was another breadcrumb in a trail that was starting to stretch far beyond anything she'd expected. She waited until the end of the day, when the hallways thinned out. With a hoodie pulled over her head and her phone flashlight angled low, she crouched near Madison's locker, pretending to tie her shoe. Glancing around to make sure no one was watching, she reached beneath the metal base. Her fingers met something slick. Plastic, maybe? She pulled out a Ziploc bag, taped tight, containing a torn page from what looked like an old yearbook. The photo was of a classroom scene from 5 years ago. Her school, room 3B. The strange part? In the background stood Ms. Ramirez, looking exactly the same. But seated in the front row was a younger version of Mr. Blake, Emily's teacher, and next to him, shockingly, was a girl that looked just like Madison. Only it couldn't be her, right? Emily turned the photo over. Scrawled in red marker were the words, "They've been here longer than you think." Her hands trembled. This wasn't just about stolen tech or shady kids messing around. Something deeper, something older, was unraveling at the seams, and she had only seen the edge of it. Before she could process the photo fully, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You're not the only one they're watching." Attached was a photo of Jonah, her younger brother, sitting on the swings at the park near their house, earbuds in, completely unaware he was being watched. Emily froze. This was no longer just about school. Now her family was part of it. Her breathing quickened. She didn't even realize she was pacing the hallway, the photo still clenched in her fist. Just then, the hallway doors swung open and Madison stepped in. For a second, their eyes locked, and something passed between them. Not the usual smug superiority Emily had grown used to. Madison looked worried, maybe even scared. She walked right up to Emily, glanced down at the plastic bag in her hand, and said in a whisper, "You shouldn't have that. They'll come for you now." Then she turned and left, without another word, leaving behind a silence, so sharp it felt like a scream held just below the surface. Emily rushed home, head spinning with theories. She needed answers and fast. She took out her laptop and started combing through archived yearbooks from the school's website and public records. The deeper she went, the more strange things she noticed. There were inconsistencies in the staff photos. Some teachers looked the same from year to year. No aging. No changes. Like time just forgot them. Mr. Blake, in particular, appeared in a photo dated 10 years ago, wearing the exact same tie he had on in class last Thursday. Same posture. Same expression. It couldn't be coincidence. She pulled up a local Reddit thread about creepy school conspiracy theories and stumbled on something that made her skin crawl. A post from 2 years ago, written by an anonymous former student, warning others not to trust the teachers at Eastwood High. The post was buried under dozens of dismissive comments and memes, but one reply stood out. Locker 107. The yearbook page. The false memory. She knows too much. Emily was about to screenshot it when her screen blinked and shut off. Power outage? She tried to restart the laptop, but it wouldn't turn on. Her phone flickered too, every app crashing, screen freezing, before finally powering off altogether. She was completely cut off. Then a low knock echoed from downstairs. Not the front door. The back patio, where nobody ever came. Her mom wasn't home yet. Jonah was upstairs playing music. Emily crept down the stairs quietly and peeked through the blinds. No one was there, but something had been left on the porch step. A small, leather-bound notebook. Weathered, cracked, and tied shut with a red string. She opened the door slowly, snatched it, and locked it behind her again. Inside, the pages were filled with journal entries. Scribbled dates, names she recognized from school, former students, teachers, even custodians. Some entries were crossed out, others highlighted. One sentence kept appearing. They erased the others. And beneath that, a name she hadn't expected to see. Tyler Cross. The quiet boy from the library. The same Tyler she'd seen walking away with what looked like her stolen flash drive. Everything she thought she knew was crumbling. Why was Tyler's name in a journal that appeared to be written years ago? Who had delivered it? And why now? And how did Madison know about it? The layers of this mystery were twisting together in ways that didn't make sense. Every person she encountered, every piece of the puzzle she uncovered, only pulled her deeper into something that felt orchestrated, like she was part of a game being played by people she couldn't see. Suddenly, Jonah called from upstairs. "Emily? My phone just got this weird message. It says, 'Ask your sister what she found under the locker.'" Emily's heart stopped. They weren't just watching her anymore. They were talking directly to her family. And she was starting to wonder if anyone, Madison, Tyler, Ms. Ramirez, even Mr. Blake, could be trusted at all. But the most chilling question of all? If Tyler's name was written down years ago, what exactly was he? Emily barely slept that night. Every creak in the house sounded like a footstep. Every car that passed outside made her jump. She kept replaying Jonah's words over and over. Ask your sister what she found under the locker. How did they know about her little brother? How were they watching? Her window shades had been pulled tight, her phone was off, and the laptop was fried. Still, someone out there knew. Someone was inside her life now. The strange notebook sat on her desk like a loaded trap, its pages now branded into her memory. She wanted to burn it, but something told her it wasn't done telling its story. At school the next day, the atmosphere felt different. It wasn't just in her head. People were looking at her, longer, quieter, more calculating. Whispers floated through the halls like a cold breeze. Even Madison wouldn't meet her eyes. Emily walked through it all in a fog, trying to act normal, but inside, her nerves were unraveling thread by thread. Then something happened that shattered any illusion of safety she still had. After lunch, she went to check on Jonah. He was supposed to be in the middle school building across campus, just a 5-minute walk. But when she got there, his class was already out, and he was nowhere to be seen. At first, she figured he might have stayed late or gone to the library, but the pit in her stomach told her something was off. She asked his teacher, who blinked at her like she didn't understand. Jonah? He didn't come in today. I assumed he was out sick. Emily's blood went cold. She sprinted to the front office, frantically asking them to page him, but the secretary just shook her head. He wasn't marked present today, sweetie. Are you sure he came with you? Her voice was calm, almost too calm, like she didn't grasp the urgency. Or maybe she did, and was pretending not to. Emily called her mom immediately, hands shaking so badly she dropped the phone twice. Jonah left with me this morning. I remember him grabbing his headphones. I saw him walk out the door. Her mom's voice cracked. He's not answering my texts, Em. Did you check the park? Sometimes but Emily had already hung up and was running. The sun seemed colder. The world felt wrong. The park was empty, the swing set moving slowly in the breeze like it was mocking her. On the bench was something new, something that hadn't been there before. A folded sheet of paper. On it, printed in that same jarring red font, were just 2 words. Too late. She collapsed onto the bench, gasping like the air had turned toxic. Her hands trembled as she read the back of the note, which had a blurry photo of Jonah. Only now he was sitting in what looked like a dark room, concrete walls, no windows, a single bare bulb casting a long shadow. Tears welled up in her eyes. This wasn't just a game anymore. Someone had taken her brother. This was real. And whoever they were done hiding in the shadows. They were sending a message. When she returned to the school, she tried to find Tyler, desperate to demand answers. But he was gone. Vanished. Not in any classes, not in the library, not even on the attendance list when she had someone in the office accidentally show her the records. It was as if he'd never existed at all. His name wasn't even on the yearbook site anymore, scrubbed clean, just like the post she had seen on Reddit the night before. Her phone, which had miraculously turned back on, now had only one photo in her gallery, the one of Jonah in the dark room. Everything else, every screenshot, every note she had taken, even her messages with herself, deleted. Like someone had erased the evidence while she slept. That night, the fear became something else entirely. Not just anxiety, not just dread, but full-blown paranoia. She kept the lights on in every room, jumping at her own reflection in the mirror. Her mom was on the phone with the police, but they didn't take it seriously. He probably ran away. Maybe he's hiding out with friends, they said. But Emily knew better. Jonah wouldn't do that. He wasn't just missing, he was taken. And she had no proof, no help, and nowhere to run. She opened the notebook again, hoping for a clue she had missed. There was an entry dated years ago, written in a different handwriting. They always take the sibling first. It's how they control you. That line nearly broke her. She flipped further and found a list of symbols, geometric shapes with handwritten notes beside them. One shape had a circle within a square, labeled, "The Place of Reset." Another was a triangle surrounded by dots, "The Watchers." Emily had no idea what any of it meant, but deep inside, she could feel it. These weren't just drawings. They were part of something ancient, organized, and terrifyingly real. Then, just when she thought it couldn't get worse, someone knocked on the front door. Not a normal knock. A pattern: 3 taps, pause, 2 taps. Exactly like the rhythm she'd seen scribbled in the notebook. Her mom was asleep on the couch, oblivious. Emily crept toward the door and looked through the peephole. No one was there. But taped to the door was a Polaroid, Jonah again, now with a gag over his mouth and fear in his eyes. Scribbled across the bottom, "Stop looking. Final warning." She stumbled backward, breath hitching in her throat, tears streaming down her face. Her mind was spiraling. Who was doing this? How were they so deep inside her life? Why were the adults acting like everything was fine? Nothing made sense anymore. Nothing was safe. And worst of all, she had no idea who she could trust. Because what if Madison wasn't the only one who knew? What if her teachers weren't just hiding secrets, but were part of something much darker? And what if Emily's next step didn't save Jonah, but sealed her own fate? Emily had reached the edge of herself. The fear, the silence, the unanswered questions, it all boiled beneath her skin like a fever. That night, after the knock on her door and the Polaroid that nearly broke her, she decided to go back to the one place she feared the most, the school. Not during the day, not while it was full of cold stares and fake smiles, but at night, when the hallways whispered instead of screamed. She knew it wasn't safe. She knew someone or something was watching. But she also knew one thing beyond a doubt. If she didn't get answers now, Jonah was never coming home. Her phone was off, her flashlight dim, her nerves fried. But as she slipped through the side door she'd seen the janitor prop open on Tuesdays, she felt something she hadn't in days: control. The school was a different world at night. Empty desks looked like gravestones. The flicker of emergency lights cast long shadows across the floor. Her footsteps echoed through the halls like they were trying to wake the building. She made her way to the basement. Yes, the basement. The one no one ever talked about, the one supposedly used for storage but never shown during school tours. The same place her brother had once asked about after hearing a strange hum through the vents. The heavy door creaked open, revealing a steep stairwell and the faint sound of something mechanical below. But that's not what stopped her in her tracks. Someone was already down there. She could hear it. Quiet footsteps, the rustle of paper, the slow pull of a zipper. Emily ducked into the shadows and waited, heart in her throat. A figure stepped into view. Not a teacher. Not Madison. It was Mr. Callahan, the school counselor. The one who always had warm tea, gentle eyes, and the exact right words to say. The one who had told her, just last week, "If you ever feel overwhelmed, I'm here." Only now he wasn't here to help. He was crouched by a metal filing cabinet, rifling through folders marked with strange codes. L17, R22, J01. He didn't see her at first, and she dared not breathe. But then, as he pulled out a folder marked Emily A. Walters, he looked up, right at her. There was no surprise in his face. No panic. Just something worse: recognition. "You weren't supposed to come here," he said softly, not even standing. "But I suppose it was inevitable. You've always been curious." She didn't move. Couldn't. Her voice caught in her throat, but her mind was spinning. He had a folder on her. A file. He knew she would come. "What do you want?" she finally whispered. He gave her a look that almost felt disappointed. "It was never about what we wanted, Emily. It's about what you already knew." Those words hit like a thunderclap. Because deep inside, something stirred. A memory. Not of this week. Not even of this year. Something old. Something buried. Emily backed away, confused, shaking her head, but Callahan didn't follow. "You asked too many questions. You kept the notebook. You opened it, even when we tried to burn it in '98. You don't remember that part yet, but you will. The mind protects itself, Emily. You were part of this before. All of this is just you coming back.
She ran.
Faster than she ever had before. She didn't want to hear more.
Not yet.
The hallway blurred past her as she flew back up the stairs, her lungs burning, her mind spiraling. Coming back? 1998? She wasn't even born in 1998. What did he mean? That she was part of this? That her memories weren't real? When she burst out into the night air, she expected cold relief. Instead, she found Madison standing beside her mother's car. Her face was pale, her eyes rimmed with red. "I didn't know how to tell you," she said before Emily could even speak. "I lied. Not just about the notebook, but everything. We weren't strangers in middle school. We were best friends. You forgot." Emily froze. The world stopped turning. "That's not possible," she whispered. But Madison nodded. "We were in a group. 4 of us. Me, you, Tyler, and Jonah." Emily couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Jonah's 10. He wasn't even born when we were in middle school." Madison stepped closer. "Emily, Jonah is your little brother now. But he wasn't always. None of this is what you think. The school isn't what you think. You were made to forget. All of us were. But someone or something didn't finish the job." And then, like a final blow to everything she thought was real, Madison reached into her jacket and pulled out a photo. A faded, scratched Polaroid of 4 kids, maybe 12 years old, standing in front of the school building. There was no mistaking it. The girl on the left was Emily. Not just a look-alike, her. Same eyes. Same crooked smile. Only younger. And standing beside her, grinning with a missing front tooth, was Jonah. The edges of the photo burned into Emily's brain like a scar. "Emily," Madison said, voice shaking. "We were part of something. And they've been trying to erase us ever since." But before she could say more, the floodlights above the school flicked on, casting everything in blinding white. A voice crackled from a speaker overhead, one Emily had never noticed before. "Return immediately. This is your final extraction warning." Emily couldn't breathe. The words from the speaker still echoed in her ears as Madison clutched the photo like it was the last thing anchoring them to reality. Final extraction warning. What did that even mean? Who was watching them? Who had this much power? Her thoughts swirled into chaos as she stumbled toward the car, heart hammering. The photo in Madison's hand had cracked everything open, but it wasn't just the past that terrified her now. It was what came next. She had seen her face in that photo, undeniable proof that someone had manipulated her memories. But even more terrifying was Jonah's smile beside her. How could she have forgotten him? And why was he so much older in that photo? Just as she reached the car door, her mother emerged from the house. But something was off. Her movements were too calm, her expression unreadable. "Emily," she said flatly, "you need to come inside.
Now."
It wasn't a suggestion. It was an order. And Emily recognized something chilling in her voice. Not fear. Not concern.
Control.
Like someone who had practiced that line 100 times. Madison stepped forward, but her mother raised her hand. "You're not welcome here. This is a family matter." Emily turned toward Madison, unsure, scared, clinging to the last shred of normalcy. "I need to talk to her," she whispered, hoping for a sign, anything, that her mother was still hers. But her mother's expression never changed. "We'll talk at home," she said coldly.
Now.
Emily's stomach dropped. Inside the house, the tension suffocated her. Her mother locked the door behind them, a loud, final click that sounded like a cage closing. The living room felt unfamiliar, every picture frame and cushion now a prop in a stage play. Her mom stood by the window, arms folded. "You've been asking questions," she said, "digging into things you don't understand." Emily wanted to scream, to cry, to demand answers, but something deeper inside warned her to listen first. "You weren't supposed to remember," her mother continued, eyes glossing over with a sadness that felt rehearsed. "They promised us peace.
Safety.
We agreed because it was the only way to keep you alive." Emily stared. "Who's they? What do you mean agreed? What did you do to me?" Her mother's mask cracked slightly. "We gave up everything. You were part of a trial, a correction. They said you were too close to the breach. They said you'd be better off reprogrammed. But you started to remember anyway, even after the resets. Emily's hands trembled. You're telling me you let them erase my memory? Change who I was? Her mother's eyes glistened now, but the coldness never left her voice. It was either that or lose you forever. You don't know what it was like watching you come home broken, seeing the things you drew. The symbols, the names, things no one should have known. They said it was seeping through again, and if we didn't comply, you wouldn't survive the next breach. Emily felt her knees weaken. The world spun. Her own mother had chosen to rewrite her, rather than face the truth. But just as she was about to scream, the TV behind them flickered to life on its own.
Static.
Then a face.
Blurry.
Unfamiliar. Yet somehow familiar. A voice came through, calm, male, detached. You've broken containment, Emily. You have one chance to re-enter the program. Or you and the others will be classified as hostile. Her mother turned slowly, but didn't react. You should take the offer, she whispered. They won't give you another. Emily's heart pounded like a drumbeat of dread. And if I don't? She asked, voice cracking. The TV cut to black. Outside, Madison's car engine roared to life and peeled away. Emily ran to the window, trying to call her name, but it was no use. She was gone. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. A single message. One of your friends already chose. Now it's your turn. Stay blind or lose everything. She dropped the phone. She couldn't take it. The pressure. The lies. The weight of not knowing what had been done to her, or what she had once done. Because now, buried somewhere in that fractured mind of hers, was the truth. And someone didn't want it resurfacing. Her mom stepped closer, placing a trembling hand on her shoulder. They're not bluffing, Emily. They never were. If you dig too deep, they'll come for the ones you love first. They always do. Emily stared back at her through the fog of betrayal. So what? I stay quiet, live a lie, pretend none of this ever happened. Her mom's lips quivered. If it keeps you alive, yes. Emily's chest ached. She couldn't trust anyone. Not her family. Not her memories. Not even the reality around her. And now she was trapped between two nightmares: live under control and never know the truth, or fight back and risk everything, including the people who still believed in her.
The doorbell rang.
3 soft chimes. Emily and her mother froze. It was after midnight. No one came at this hour. Her mom opened her mouth to speak, but Emily beat her to the door. She flung it open and gasped. Standing on the porch was Jonah. Only not the Jonah she knew. This Jonah was older, taller, wiser. The one from the photo. He looked her in the eyes and said 6 words. It's time you remembered everything. Emily stepped back as Jonah crossed the threshold, his presence somehow both familiar and jarring, like a dream half remembered after waking. His eyes, darker now, scanned the room quickly before landing on her mother, who stood paralyzed in place. You knew she'd remember, Jonah said, voice low but steady. You should have told her the truth. Her mother said nothing, her jaw tight, but Emily could see the fear flicker behind her carefully composed face. That one glance between them confirmed what she already feared. They had known each other. Not recently, before. Before the reprogramming. Before the erasure. Before the project. Jonah turned to Emily and reached slowly into his jacket. Her body tensed, ready to bolt or fight, until he pulled out a small device, no bigger than a key fob, scuffed and worn. This will give you a 10-minute window, he said. Once activated, they won't be able to trace you. But after that, they'll come hard and fast. We don't have long. Emily blinked. What is it? What do you mean they'll trace me? Jonah looked at her with pity. You were the last successful divergence. You weren't supposed to come back online. But when your memories started reactivating, it triggered a failsafe across the network. They think you're a threat now, not just to their project, but to the entire containment structure. And you're not the only one. What do you mean, not the only one? Emily whispered. Her voice barely held together. Jonah didn't answer with words. He stepped toward the hallway and opened the coat closet. Inside were 5 manila folders,
Stacked.
labeled, tagged with names she recognized.
Classmates.
Friends. Even a teacher. They didn't just rewrite your mind, Emily. They rewrote the whole town. Her breath caught in her throat. What is this? She reached for the top folder and flipped it open. Inside were surveillance photos. Not just of her, but of everyone. At school. At the grocery store. In their homes. Conversations transcribed. Emotional reactions documented. Behavior patterns tracked. She dropped the folder like it had burned her.
Why?
Why would they do this? Jonah glanced toward her mother, who finally spoke. Because it worked, she said quietly. They tested it here, because no one would question it. A quiet town.
Good people.
Easy to manipulate. And they got results. Predictable behavior, social compliance, obedience under stress. They turned us into case studies. Emily felt her entire world fracture under the weight of the truth. So what am I? She said, voice shaking. Some kind of lab rat? Jonah didn't sugarcoat it. You were the control that went rogue. You saw something you weren't supposed to see. Then you resisted the erasure. They thought they had fixed you, but your mind adapted. You're the anomaly they can't contain. The room felt like it was spinning. She backed away, heart racing, sweat prickling her neck. Who else knows? She asked. Who else is in on this? Jonah's jaw tensed. Most don't, but some do. Some were placed here. Embedded. Trained to keep order. Emily looked between him and her mother. Like her? Her mother looked away. A loud crash shattered the moment. The window behind them exploded inward, glass spraying across the room. Jonah lunged forward, grabbing Emily and dragging her behind the couch as red lasers danced across the walls. They're early, he yelled. Her mother screamed something, but the sound was drowned out by a sharp, high-pitched frequency that made Emily's skull feel like it was splitting open. Then, silence. When she opened her eyes, Jonah was dragging her toward the back door. The house was chaos. Walls scorched, smoke trailing from a strange-looking device now embedded in the floor. As they stumbled outside into the cold night air, Jonah threw the fob-shaped device into the dirt and pressed a small button. A strange pulse rippled through the air. Streetlights flickered, and the distant hum of surveillance drones cut out instantly. "We got 10 minutes," he said. "But you need to see something first." They ran through the woods behind her house, feet crunching on wet leaves, until they came to an old, rusted storm shelter she had never noticed before. Jonah opened it, and they descended into darkness, until the flicker of fluorescent lights revealed something she could barely comprehend. A room, filled with screens, files, monitors displaying live footage from across town, from inside homes, kids in their bedrooms, parents cooking dinner, a teacher alone in the staff room, all of them being watched. "This is one of their relay stations," Jonah said. "They built them under the town in case a reset ever failed. There are at least 3 more. But this one's different. This one is logs. Footage. Backups of what was removed from your memory, including the day it all started." Emily stepped forward, hands trembling, and reached for the main console. But just as her fingers grazed the surface, she heard the one voice she least expected. "Well," said Madison, stepping from the shadows. "I didn't think you'd actually find this place." Emily froze. "Madison? What are you doing here?" Madison looked different. Stronger. Colder. Her face no longer held the warmth of friendship. Only calculation. "You weren't supposed to dig this deep," she said flatly. "We gave you outs. Hints. Even warnings. But you just kept going." Jonah stepped forward, shielding Emily. "She's not one of them anymore," he growled. But Madison just smirked. "Is that what you told her? That I'm the villain? That I betrayed her?" "Jonah, you of all people should know. It's not betrayal if you're saving the world." Emily stared at her, horror dawning. You've been part of this the whole time?" Madison's smile faded. "I was. But not anymore. You think this conspiracy is limited to our little town?"
No.
"It's global. And the ones pulling the strings? They don't care about individuals. They care about control." I stayed close to you because I needed to know when you would start waking up. Because you're the trigger, Emily. You're the one they fear. The one who remembers too much. Emily took a shaky breath. Then why not help me stop them? Madison's face went pale. Because if you destroy the network, if you rip the truth wide open, you won't just be taking down the people who hurt us. You'll destroy the lives of millions who are living in blissful ignorance. People who don't want to remember. People who chose to forget. Emily's world swirled with confusion. Jonah pulled up a screen. You have to make a choice. Wipe it clean or broadcast it. Show the truth to the world. Either way, everything changes tonight. As Emily stood there, caught between loyalty, betrayal, fear, and truth, a red warning light flashed across the screen. Breach detected. Containment failing. Response units inbound. Time was running out. The countdown had begun. The whirring of drones outside grew louder, like a swarm descending on the forest, a cold reminder that time was collapsing around them. Inside the bunker, red emergency lights bathed the room in a pulse of impending doom. Emily stood frozen, her hand hovering over the control panel that could broadcast everything, every lie, every manipulated memory, every monitored conversation, to the outside world. The truth was right there, raw and undeniable, compressed into a single file marked Origin. Jonah's voice cut through the tension like a knife, low and urgent. Once it's out, there's no going back. People will riot. Trust in the system will fall apart. But the ones running this, they'll never let you walk away after this. Emily didn't need to be reminded. She knew that once she hit send, she wasn't just blowing open a conspiracy, she was burning the bridge back to a normal life. And then Madison stepped forward again, her eyes gleaming with an intensity that made the hair on Emily's arms stand on end. Before you make your grand move, she said, gesturing to the console, don't you want to know why you were chosen in the first place? Why all of this happened to you? Emily narrowed her eyes, hand still trembling over the control panel. Why now? Why tell me this now? Madison reached into her coat and pulled out a flash drive. Because you've only seen part of the truth. The Origin file tells you what they did to this town. This, she said, holding up the drive, tells you why they needed to. Emily hesitated. Jonah stepped between them, suddenly alarmed. Don't listen to her. That drive's bait. It's how they stall you, long enough for the kill team to arrive. But something about Madison's face didn't scream manipulation anymore. It screamed guilt. It screamed desperation. This isn't a stall, she said. It's a confession. With shaking fingers, Emily took the drive and plugged it into the side port. The screen flickered for a moment, then loaded a video feed labeled Pilot Protocol, Emily. As the footage rolled, her heart dropped into her stomach. She saw herself, 10 years younger, being wheeled into a sterile lab. Scientists discussing her cognitive resistance, her test scores, her ability to reconstruct memory fragments even after memory wipes. She wasn't just in the program. She had been its foundation. The first subject. The only one who had ever survived full cognitive reprogramming and recovered. This entire town, Madison said softly, was built around you. It was designed to see how far we could push one person's mind before it broke. Every relationship you had, every event in your life, it was all orchestrated. They didn't just monitor your life, they scripted it. Emily couldn't speak. The screen showed her 5th birthday, her parents fighting, the death of her childhood dog. None of it was organic. All of it was part of a test. And the worst part? Her mother had been involved since the beginning. Suddenly, she remembered the night her backpack was stolen. The way everyone laughed. How she'd opened it to reveal files they'd placed there. It hadn't been a prank or coincidence.
It was a trigger event.
One final push to see if her subconscious would awaken. And it had. She stumbled back from the screen as alarms began blaring again, this time closer, more urgent. Jonah grabbed her arm. We have to go.
Now.
But Emily pulled away.
No.
I need to end this. She turned back to the console, eyes burning with rage, betrayal, grief. I'm not a test. I'm not their experiment anymore. She looked at Madison. Is there a kill switch? Madison nodded slowly. It's embedded in the core system. If you upload everything and destroy the relay node at the same time, it'll send a burst that disables the other nodes across the region. You'll cut off their reach. But you'll also fry everything tied to it, including your records. And once that happens, there's no recovering anything. Your memories, the footage, it all burns. Emily paused. She looked at the glowing button labeled Broadcast to External, and then at the self-destruct command. So either I keep the proof and risk them coming after me, or destroy everything, including the evidence, and vanish into anonymity. Jonah stepped forward. You can still walk away. You've done more than anyone. But once you choose, there's no undoing it. Emily's hand hovered over the options. The world was waiting for a choice it didn't even know was coming. And then click. The system whirred into motion. Data surged into the network. Emily had made her choice. The broadcast began. But in that final second, just as the file hit 99%, the screen went black. A silent pulse echoed through the chamber. Then, total darkness. When she awoke, she was in a hospital bed.
Clean. White.
Clinical. A soft voice said her name. Emily. She turned, dazed. It was Jonah, dressed in a white coat. You had a bad fall, he said gently. But you're going to be okay. She looked around. There were no wires. No screens. No memory of what had just happened. Where am I? She asked. Jonah smiled. Welcome home. But outside the hospital window, in the reflection of the glass, a blinking red light pulsed faintly. System reboot in progress. Memory reintegration. 3%. The truth hadn't been broadcast. It had been reset. And this time they were starting over. 2 weeks passed. The world outside the facility remained untouched by the truth, unaware that history had almost been rewritten in the shadows. Emily sat alone on a park bench tucked away in a quiet corner of a city she no longer recognized, if she ever truly had. The late autumn wind brushed leaves across her boots, and the scent of fading flowers clung to the breeze. Everything felt normal on the surface, eerily so, like a movie set built to look like peace. Children laughed somewhere nearby, and the distant hum of traffic played like background noise in a life that had restarted itself. But Emily knew better. She knew what they were capable of. And more than that, she knew what they had done. The memories came back in flashes, fragmented like dreams half-remembered after waking. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, she'd wake up in a sweat, seeing red lights, hearing the whirring of drones, feeling the pressure of choice, the weight of truth versus survival. And though no files remained, no digital trace of what had been uncovered, the feeling never left her. Something had happened. Something had shifted deep inside her that they couldn't wipe clean. She had found the hospital after she escaped, the real one, buried under layers of corporate names and off-the-record operations. It was a shell now, gutted by fire. Whether the destruction was accidental or planned was never confirmed, but the timing said enough. She remembered walking through the scorched lobby, finding a melted security badge stamped with the emblem she'd seen on the origin file. That was her confirmation. That was her truth. She wasn't crazy. She had been right all along. But proving it was now impossible. No witnesses. No physical evidence. Only her word, her gut, and her scars. Jonah had vanished without a trace. Madison, too. Some said they were relocated. Others believed they were eliminated. Emily didn't know which fate was worse, being silenced permanently, or forced to live under another name, another identity, pretending the past never happened. For all she knew, they could be walking around somewhere, reprogrammed like she almost was, smiling at strangers with no idea of who they really were. And that haunted her more than anything else. Still, Emily didn't fade quietly into the background. Instead, she began leaving markers. Subtle ones. A line of code in a forgotten forum. A book donation to a library containing redacted pages filled with invisible ink. A podcast episode with an encrypted voice recounting the events in vague metaphors. She knew she couldn't blow the whistle, but she could plant seeds. Let others follow the trail the way she once had. Let the truth simmer underground until the day someone else was ready to finish what she started. And that was enough for now. She didn't need revenge. She needed purpose. She took comfort in knowing that while they had tried to erase her, she still existed outside their scripts. Her choices were now her own. And then, on the night of the first snowfall, something strange happened. She returned home to find a package resting on her doorstep. No label. No return address. Inside was a single item, her old backpack, the very same one from school, now dusty and weathered but unmistakably hers. Tucked inside was a flash drive. No markings. No hint of origin. Just a message taped to the side. This time, finish it. Her heart pounded. Was it from Jonah? From someone new? Another survivor? Or had they sent it to see what she would do next? Either way, the message was clear. The story wasn't over. As she held the drive in her hand under the flickering porch light, Emily understood something profound. The fight for truth wasn't always won through a grand reveal or viral exposure. Sometimes it was in persistence, in resilience, in choosing, day after day, not to be controlled, no matter how carefully the world around you was engineered to keep you quiet. She looked up into the night sky as snow began to fall, letting the silence wrap around her like a promise. Whatever came next, she was ready. Because she had learned the most dangerous thing you could be in a system built on lies was someone who remembered. And somewhere, just out of view, a camera blinked red once more.